we go. Okay, well, thank you. Excited to see you all today. Thank you all for coming. As mentioned, I'm a neurologist, similar to the folks you met earlier today. Practices neuromuscular medicine at the University of Calgary. And so we have a comparable kind of clinic on the west side of the country as well, of course. And this is going to be a bit of a dynamic talk where we've made some changes as we've been evolving, as there was a bit of an announcement to make with all of this, which I think we're all very excited about. And so I'm going to be introducing the Canadian Neuromuscular Disease Registry. This registry was started about 15 years ago and has been operating across Canada over that period of time. But a little bit more about me. I think whenever any of us physicians chat and we're speaking about the work that we do, it's helpful to know where our funding comes from. And of course, the work, I highlighted the companies that are involved in the FSHD space. And so these companies support clinical trials that are done, and certainly a lot of the industry support for this registry that is conducted across Canada that you're going to learn about right now. Importantly, we separate out their role from the role of what we do with the data, how that's managed, et cetera, which is all through the University of Calgary and all our universities that are partnering across Canada. And then the other thing you're going to hear about is a new program. And this was in part developed, led by the visionary leadership, as you hear about, from the FSHD Society, FSHD Canada. But we did start a company about 7 years ago, the Canadian Neuromuscular Disease Registry. The intent of the company was to help us build technologies that we just were not able to do within the university. And so that's a company called Lumio. And so whenever I speak about the Canadian Neuromuscular Disease Registry, it's important to note this is on behalf of a large number of clinician researchers across Canada. These are all neuromuscular experts. There's several in the room with us today who are all key participators and leaders within our registry network. And so that's always important to showcase. And so what's a registry? A registry is just a way to organize information. So it's essentially, it's a team accompanied by software where we're able to enroll individuals to participate, and then we're able to track medical information. So of course, it's purely voluntary. It's highly secure software infrastructure, so it's equivalent to online banking, for example. And then, of course, it's all governed by the University Ethics Committee at the University of Calgary and all the universities across Canada that participate. And I think importantly, this is really timely work. When we started this registry 15 years ago, we thought this would be interesting and important. And then as we started doing more work in ALS, spinal muscular atrophy, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, what we learned was it's really important for us to get to these clinical trials, operate these clinical trials, have success in these clinical trials. All of that requires organization. And that's not just the physicians and the researchers and the companies, but it's the whole community, which includes everybody. Ultimately, as you heard earlier today, these clinical trials would not occur without volunteers to participate with the condition of interest, FSHD in this case. And so it's really important that we all work together, we all collaborate, and that's really important. But after a treatment is identified as being effective in a clinical trial, then of course it needs to be approved by the regulators, Health Canada in our country. Then we need to get it into the clinics, we need to get it reimbursed. So there's all these sort of battles to sort of fight and advocate for, and all of that works infinitely better when we work together. And certainly we've been partnered with different organizations over time to accomplish those goals. And we've had tremendous support. And I think our communities have been very successful. And you see FSHD community coming together. It's inspiring. You're going to hear about Project Mercury later today, which is an international effort to really organize all of the communities and prepare so that anybody who's interested in treatment has the option, as long as that treatment, of course, can benefit them. And that's what we want to advocate for. And so this is importantly part of that work. And so who are we? So we have 136 investigators across Canada. So these are typically clinicians who also do some research and practice neuromuscular medicine. We're in 52 different clinics. So we're in most clinics in Canada. Those are adult clinics, pediatric clinics, over 6,000 patients. Now, this isn't FSHD numbers. This is neuromuscular disease in general. I will say we are, as of this morning, at 298 FSHD individuals within the registry. So feel welcome to join us on this journey, of course, and contribute. But of course, these are very personal choices. And so what do we do with this information? And I think, you know, if we look at what are the challenges ahead for our community, you know, that's what we're trying to address through data. So we're trying to understand who's out there. Where are the individuals affected by this condition? You know, who are their clinicians? Where do we need to put the resources? What is the variability for care across Canada? Who has better access? Who has poorer access? How do we equalize that? How do we advocate for that? And you know, clinicians, you know, we have all these opinions on things, but nobody really listens to us unless we can prove what we're saying with data, particularly when it comes to our hospitals or our health regions. And of course, that's always best done together in partnership. You know, it takes way too long to get diagnosed. We know all that. And so how do we accelerate that? And we've done this again. This happens in every disease, right? And so that's the bad news. But the good news is other diseases have learned, you know, and we've learned from those diseases how to accelerate things. You know, for example, in ALS, you know, it used to take our patients about 18 months to get a diagnosis from symptom onset. We've been able to get that down to about 12 months. So it's still not great, but it's much faster than it was. In terms of, you know, how do we understand quality of life with this disease? How do we encourage and support that? And then importantly, how do we capture the patient voice? Meaning, you know, what are your opinions? What are your thoughts? What do you want to happen? What are your needs? Sometimes there's a disconnect. Asking a clinician what a patient thinks is not the same as asking a patient what they think. Those are two different things. And sometimes they're aligned and sometimes they're less aligned. And then in the end, you know, much of this is about advocating for treatments. It's you know, in Canada, there's a typical pathway where, let's say in spinal muscular atrophy, there'll be criteria to enter a clinical trial. And then when it's approved, the regulator, Health Canada, will say, okay, we're approving this for everybody with spinal muscular atrophy. But then when it comes to reimbursement, who's going to pay for this? The Canadian Drug Agency will say, well, there's not evidence for everybody. There's only evidence for those people who could qualify for the trial. So they'll tighten up the access in that scenario. Now, you know, that's Canadian Drug Agency's job in this work, but it's our job to advocate and say, well, hang on, we're seeing benefit beyond those criteria, and we need to open this up for more individuals who would like to have this treatment. And I'm very proud to say that about a year ago, we were the first registry to ever partner with the Canadian Drug Agency to help them learn how to use our data and help us learn what we need to do to successfully inform their decisions. And so I think we're getting there in terms of this type of work. And so when we are able to use data, we understand better who's out there, who needs help, who needs access, who's missing out. And then of course understanding how well do these drugs work. You know, I hope we don't have one drug. I hope we have 3 drugs, 4 drugs, and then it's going to be an understanding which drug and which patient is going to be the best choice. So there's all sorts of, when you don't have a treatment, of course, you're waiting for that first treatment, but afterwards you see there's so many complicated questions that come up that we need to answer. And we're very proud at our registry, over 300 data uses. I think we're about 330 or 340. And so basically the data is available to the whole community. And so researchers from particularly Canada, but around the world can use it to inform research and advocate, et cetera. We publish lots of papers, and a lot of this comes down to advocacy in terms of advancing access for patients and promoting our understanding of what's happening. And so importantly, to announce today, so a bit more formally, that we have launched an FSHD specific Canadian data program. And what this means is we have, as you saw, there's 160 different neuromuscular diseases. And so we are able to recruit patients across all of those diseases, but we don't have the capacity to collect medical information on everybody and really do a very deep job of understanding that condition. And so we've done that in a limited number of diseases over the years: Duchenne, spinal muscular atrophy, ALS. But thanks to FSHD Society of Canada, Neil, we did receive funding, and there's going to be another funding announcement later on this month to have a very to have an essentially FSHD focused data set. And so already we're starting to collect data across the country. And so the way that you connect with that is through your clinic. So whichever clinic you go to in Canada is most likely collecting this information. Of course, you would need to consent and agree and volunteer to participate in this program. At the end of this talk, I'll have a QR code, because if you don't go to a clinic, you can just call our national office in Calgary and get registered, no problem. You don't need to have medical confirmation, et cetera, right up front. You know, we can work with your physicians to obtain that information. But of course, the key is to have reliable information so that we can track things over time and understand how everybody in our community is doing. And again, it's all private, nothing's ever de-identified, nobody will ever know who you are, et cetera. And it's all governed by our ethics committees within the universities across Canada. And our goals here are to understand how many Canadians even do we have living with this condition, where are they? It's going to be put in the class. So we use this partially to advocate for more trials coming to Canada. And this has worked really, really well for us in other diseases. And so for example, we have current trials starting at one center or two centers across Canada. We want trial options for every center who wants to participate. We want to include them, understand differences in care for all patients, and then understand how is this condition progressing, particularly when treatments arrive. You know, is this working better? Is it not working better? Is it working in everybody, just in some patients? And what are the different factors? And so in 2023, thanks to Muscular Dystrophy Canada, we started to work on obtaining a data set, coming to agreement on that work. So we're very grateful for that support and collaboration. We obtained initial approvals in 2014 to move forward, and ended up just launching the program recently with a goal to have 500 Canadians by 2026, and we're well underway. So I'm going to hand over to Amanda. So she was supposed to do the talk after me, but she's going to come talk now, and then I'm going to hop back on after. And so her slide.
There she is.
There you go.
Okay, can you all hear me all right? If I stand here, great. A lot of times, closer?
Yeah. I know. sorry.
Lean over like that all the time.
Okay, hi everyone, thank you for having me. My name is Amanda Hill. I work with the FSHD Society in the US. I'm based out of Colorado. And I'm the Senior Director of Research at the FSHD Society. I've been here about 3 years. My background is in the biomedical sciences. My husband has FSHD, was diagnosed in 2016. And I want to share a little bit about a project that connects to everything Dr. Korngut was just sharing about, that we've been working on in the US over the last, well, about 3 years now since I joined the society, and it's called BetterLife FSHD. So BetterLife is a patient-driven health platform and research registry. This is a completely new platform and tool that we've been developing, that it's completely novel. So I want to break down, this is how we describe it, and I want to break down really what this means. So by patient-driven, this tool has been designed by and for people living with FSHD. It's full of personal articles, personalized resources and recommendations, and it's really meant to enable people living with FSHD to sort of be their own citizen scientists and understand their condition better. What do I mean by health platform? Within this platform, you can track symptoms over time. You can access all of the health data that you've already provided into it. And as I mentioned, learn more about your FSHD and your own health. And it's also a research registry. So all of the research-based things that Dr. Korngut was just sharing about are also enabled by BetterLife. So as your health data goes into this platform, you are able to find and be notified of clinical trials and other studies that are going on that might be of interest to you. And we are able to share your health data securely with researchers. And when you participate in any research registry, when you participate in BetterLife as well, you are able to be a part of advancing research, including research towards future treatments. So I know this sounds a little ethereal right now. What are you talking about, Amanda? And I will get there and I'll start to show you exactly what this platform looks like. But at the end of the day, BetterLife is as I mentioned, is meant to be a transformational platform for all people with FSHD to take control of their health journey. And I just want to pause here and just talk a little bit about the typical experience that folks have when they join a research registry. Is that you provide your information in, and you'll probably get updates from that registry on occasion about what they're doing with your data, what clinical trials are going on you might be eligible for. But sometimes it all feels like it's very far away, kind of at arm's length. I'm not sure what's happening. And so with the BetterLife platform, our aim is to really make what you're putting in much more tangible and useful to you. You're getting resources and information back out. So hopefully you're tracking a little bit here. I want to show you a little bit about what's inside this platform. So when you register for BetterLife, this is an online tool. You pull up, you land on this dashboard page, and this is sort of the overview of all the things that you could do inside this platform. So I mentioned this is a research registry. You're providing data into research. So part of the things that you'll be prompted to do in here, listed under these available activities, are different research surveys. So that's how the researchers pull data from you about your health, about your journey with FSHD, and they can use that for their studies. There's also different prompts here that will show you kind of what we want you to do next. So there's these fun, see my cursor up here. There's different badges that'll be prompting you to do different activities, to reach different levels in the platform. They unlock different features as you move through here. So it's kind of give it a little kick of fun now and then. And then there's some neat features I'll show you a little more about. And then a community poll. This is another one I'll point out. It's a cool citizen scientist feature where folks can actually ask their own questions of other people in the platform. So here, someone is asked if you struggle with depression, and people can answer that in real time, and you can see in real time those answers as they come in. Some other tools that are inside BetterLife include some personalized resource feeds. So these are resources that actually adapt as we learn about your progression and what symptoms you're struggling with and who you are. So as you're sharing information with BetterLife, BetterLife is adapting to you and providing some of these personalized insights. Showing here on this page is a feed of resources. These are YouTube videos, webinars, patient material, like PDFs, different materials like that, that are specific to someone who maybe has breathing problems. So this is pulling up all of those recommendations related to breathing problems. You can search this dynamically, and also, as I mentioned, it'll sort of learn who you are and customize, kind of recommend things for you. Another feature in here that's very cool is a feed of research opportunities. So this is pulling all available studies that are currently listed on clinicaltrials.gov in FSHD, and it's very searchable and easy for you to filter down. This screenshot here, you probably can only see this if you're sitting up front, but it's currently looking at studies that are available in Canada, that are currently active or enrolling. So there's a dietary protein requirement study at McGill right now, for example, that this person is listed as a good match for, this little green tag up front. So again, as BetterLife is learning about who you are, it will say, hey, I think you might be a good match for this clinical trial. Actually, I know you won't qualify for this one, so it'll help kind of narrow things down and help direct you to opportunities that might be applicable. And then we're looking at a lot of cool ways to share your data back to you in different ways. So there's a couple features in here. There's a health diary. It's currently pretty limited. We have 3 different symptoms that you can track on up to a daily basis if you like, muscle weakness, pain, and fatigue. And then there's a couple of ways that you can see some of that data out, a little graph that shows your responses over time, as well as an average output of what you've put in. And then there's also to the right here, overview of who are all of the other participants in the platform. So you can see where they're from, how many people are there, what type of FSHD do they have, what areas of muscle weakness are they reporting, and you can kind of look and see how you compare to that. So we launched this in the United States the end of August of last year. So it's been live in the US for, I don't know, so is that 8 months now, about 8 or 9 months. And I mentioned this was built with the patient community. So we've been working very closely with the community there to build it out to begin with. And as we've launched it and it's been live, we've been touching base with folks very regularly to find out, is this useful to you? What do you think of it? What's your feedback? How can we make it better? And I just wanted to share a little bit, people are very excited about this tool so far. They find it, some of the feedback that we've gotten is that folks are finding it very informative. There's some quotes up here, I won't read them all, but one, for example, someone says, it's the first place I've seen some answers. So people are finding this is a really useful place to get just key information that they weren't ever able to find before, at least not very easily. Another theme that we're hearing from folks is that it gives them a sense of community. So one user said that makes you feel like you're not alone. And that's a really common thing. We hear with folks living with FSHD, a lot of times you never meet someone else with FSHD until we're quite a ways along in your journey. But when you're in this platform, others are there with you, and you get to see a little bit about who they are, and you get to learn from others on that platform. So it brings a little bit of that sense of community. And finally, folks feel that they're excited to contribute their data. So this one person says it feels like I'm contributing to the cause with a professional group that I trust. And another says, I think it's a really interesting opportunity to contribute data. All of this, as I said, you're contributing that data into research. And then just lastly, we do ask folks, hey, how likely are you to recommend BetterLife to another friend or family member who has FSHD? And overwhelmingly, people say, yes, I'm very likely, or likely. So about 90% of folks on a scale of 1 to 10 give it a 7 to 10, indicating that they are likely or very likely to recommend it. So people like it. It is actually being useful for folks. So you might have seen where I was going with all of this. I have mentioned this is currently available in the US, and you're probably wondering, well, Amanda, why are you talking to me about this here in Canada? But drum roll, please. BetterLife is coming to Canada. So that's why I'm talking about it. We've been working closely with CNDR, with Dr. Korngut and his team at Lumio, and we're super excited to release a version of BetterLife specific for Canada, and working closely with the CNDR. So I'm not going to commit to any timelines because I'm not the project manager on it, but I do believe it is hopefully going to be finished sometime late this summer. And importantly, the data that you provide when you're in BetterLife is going to be linked up with clinical data in the CNDR. And that has a ton of research value, and we can talk a little bit more about that. So I would say the call to action right now to get ready for this, if it's something you're interested in, is to go ahead and make sure you're registered with CNDR, because that'll be kind of the first place that you'll get to know about it when it is ready to go and it is released in Canada. So I have just a couple more things, 2 more things I want to touch on before I pass it back to Lawrence, and we can kind of tag team some questions at the end here. I'll just talk a little bit about how BetterLife actually speeds research. So it does all these really wonderful things that are hopefully you all will find helpful, but then on the back end, as I mentioned, we're using that health data to speed up research. So currently in the US version of BetterLife, we have a series of surveys that we ask you to fill out about your FSHD and your experiences. And we have them spaced out over time. And so we have 3 different sets of surveys in there. So the first one is this core data set. That's really like the most key foundational things about your health history, demographics, where you're having weakness, kind of how your FSHD has progressed. And that's really the most important pieces of data that feed into the research pipeline, if you will. And then over time, we also have surveys available that do more day-to-day health tracking, like how is your pain in the last week? How has your fatigue been in the last week? And we capture those using validated research tools. And then finally, the last set of surveys are kind of additional research topics that we know help address some areas of unmet need. For example, better understanding that diagnosis journey. How the heck did you get diagnosed? Some people, it takes years, even decades to get that diagnosis. What your healthcare interactions look like, so on and so forth. And this, we're part of what we're doing is, as Lawrence mentioned, trying to align globally around the research program for FSHD registries globally. So BetterLife is working towards that. CNDR is working towards that. This will all be customized a little bit when it comes to Canada, but it will be relevant for Canada, and it will also be able to link up with sort of the global efforts that are happening. And just a note, this is relevant for CNDR. It's also relevant for BetterLife. The way this kind of works on the back end is that once you provide data in your clinical data in CNDR or the data that you've put into BetterLife, the way that we share that in a very secure manner is that we remove your personal information from your health data. So researchers can't see your name or your email address, anything like that. And then we're able to just share that health information with the research community. And in general, how this works, and there will be differences between the US and Canada, but in general, researchers can make a request to CNDR, to BetterLife, to use that health data. And they can use it really a variety of ways. They can use it to plan their clinical trials better, to understand natural history, to study genetics, a whole host of things. And there's usually a review process and a committee that needs to approve that request before they're able to use that data. And then the thing that's unique about BetterLife is that researchers can also use this platform to start new studies and run new studies. So we kind of have like a built-in tool for them and a community of folks that are already on the platform. So if someone has a new research question and they want to ask that of the community, it's just built in and they can do it right there. And then finally, researchers can also ask BetterLife or CNDR to spread the word about a new clinical trial or a new study that they need help recruiting for. And then importantly, I mentioned this, BetterLife, the data that you provide in BetterLife is going to be linked with CNDR. All right, and then my final slide here is just a note to say that this is really an evolving program and project for us. We aim to continually make BetterLife better for the community. What we've built and released right now is really like phase one. We're just getting started. We're really excited to continue working with all of you in this room and with families living with FSHD to keep making it a more useful tool. So we've got a lot of ideas going on. For example, we're looking to really expand that health diary. So there was like 3 symptoms that you could track, but there's so much more we could do with that could be way more useful. So we're talking to the community and learning about how we can make that tool more useful. We're hoping to build out a tool that would take some of the data that you provided in there about your FSHD and pair it with resources for your doctor, like the care guidelines for FSHD, and just kind of a tool that would actually help your doctor understand what FSHD is and how you've been experiencing it and how they can best support you. We're also looking at ways to visualize and track data more dynamically and in real time. And of course, there's all sorts of crazy ideas out there that we could use AI to really drive even more personalized insights and recommendations and tools. So this is ongoing, and we're excited to bring Canada into the fold and incorporate your community's insights into this, your clinicians' insights into the process. And we do this through many different ways. We have patient and caregiver focus groups. We have an advisory group that consists of actually several pharmaceutical companies, several clinicians in the space, as well as patients that all come together and kind of are guiding and helping advise us as we do this development. And then, as I mentioned, we're continually just getting feedback from the participants that are in BetterLife. And with that, Dr. Korngut, you want to come up and finish? Let's see here. Please switch back. Yep.
Really, Amanda, there's been a lot of people who worked on BetterLife to get it to this point, but certainly Amanda has been the visionary behind the whole program, which I think is amazing. And so again, just to kind of reiterate, there's the Canadian Neuromuscular Disease Registry that's located with all the clinics in Canada. So to participate, the best way to is register when you're at clinic, and then that data can be inputted into our system nationally. BetterLife is a platform you can engage directly with, but then in Canada will be connected to that data in the Canadian Neuromuscular Disease Registry, which will be incredibly powerful because again, it amplifies your voice towards what you are experiencing, what your needs are to combined with all the medical information. So at that point, it's just a more holistic picture of what is happening. As you can see, I had slides where I was supposed to, yeah, that wasn't going to happen. And then, yeah, so this is really a unique opportunity. And it's interesting because in Canada, sometimes we can do really amazing things for ourselves, but also contribute globally with knowledge that is hard to recreate in other countries because we do have universal healthcare system. We do have sort of more uniform access. Of course, we need to do better, but it's wonderful to contribute. And so just to highlight Dr. Charles Kasarjian, who is here with us and spoke earlier, is our FSHD working group lead. So each disease within the Canadian Neuromuscular Disease Registry has a group of clinician experts that govern what is done in that disease in terms of the data, in terms of releases, et cetera. So thank you to Charles, and then Victoria Hodgkinson and Grace Westbury from our CNDR team have been very heavily involved as well. And then thank you to FSHD Canada for supporting the CNDR for FSHD. And then of course our close partnership with FSHD Society. So if you're interested and you'd like to learn more, we have a website, cndr.org, or you can take a snap of this QR code, or email us, or call us, and we can help you, connect with us. So I'll leave it for any questions for Amanda and or myself about this topic.
Any questions for these guys? Yes.
Just the website, are you thinking about doing an app as well, or
Website, app, what is it?
It's a website, it's mobile optimized, it runs very well at mobile. We are looking at app development. You want to say anything about that? Okay. Coming soon.
Yeah, lots of questions. Ian.
So if you're already on a study, are you automatically in CNDR in Canada?
You mean a clinical trial?
Yes.
If you know you're not. So you have to consent to every specific study or research opportunity. So probably not. It would be the answer.
Okay.
So just call us, but we can also confirm that.